does sales training, he's not here to sell what he does. He's here to talk about how entrepreneurs can get better at sales, because it is the one lifeblood of any organization. Is if you don't have revenue and sales, you're not going very far. And so he's worked with a number of entrepreneurs over the years and seen a lot of things that can get in the way of effective selling, and has some tips and tricks that can help them do better in terms of what they're doing. So I don't want to steal any thunder from Mike, but if you'll join me in giving Mike a nice one-leg applause.
Thanks, Gunnar. Can everybody hear me okay? Good deal. So I'm going to start off with, some of you will absolutely, positively, 100% hate the things I share today. Let me say that again. Some of you will absolutely, positively, 100% hate the things I share today. Now, why is that? Our brains operate from our subconscious. You may or may not know this, but we operate our waking hours, meaning the hours that we're not asleep somewhere. 70 to 90% of our actions or interactions are driven by our subconscious. You may or may not know that, but it's true. If you don't believe me, everybody I know that's old enough to drive has had this happen. You've been driving somewhere, you went through a stoplight, all of a sudden you went into panic mode because you couldn't remember if the light was red or green when you went through it. How many of you have experienced that? Be honest. If you don't raise your hand, either you're not old enough to drive or you get a pretty big awareness problem. So, on your seats or when you came in, there should be a handout that looks roughly like this. I'm going to give you some notes to take today. Whether you take them or not is totally up to you. On the back of the handout is all of our contact info, so if you want to follow my company or follow me on social media or contact us in any way, shape, or form, all that stuff is there. So I'm going to give you a way to absorb what we're going to talk about today more than anything to kind of start us off. And Gunnar, would you give me about a 10-minute warning, just so I know we've got to make sure we get time for Q&A? At the top of the first page of your handout, there's kind of a little bit of a blank note space, and I'm going to give you a way to think about today, and I also want you to use this to think about your own businesses. Some of you are entrepreneurs, some of you are existing business owners, some of you are thinking about doing one of those things, and I want you to use this to understand what happens in our subconscious minds. There's been a phrase that's been around for a long time. You've probably heard it or some version of it, called self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And what a self-fulfilling prophecy is how our subconscious minds help us predetermine outcomes. And by the way, it happens to us thousands of times a day. So I'm going to give you how to draw this into a diagram so you can physically put it into a picture. For those of you that want to take notes, this is what this note space is for. So we're going to draw something that's kind of like the face of a clock, not a digital clock, an actual clock with hands that go around. At the top of that, I want you to write down the word beliefs. I want you to write down the word beliefs. What happens in our subconscious minds is that our beliefs lead us to make judgments. Our beliefs lead us to make judgments. And by the way, this happens this fast in our subconscious minds. So beliefs is at the top. If you're going around, you've got judgments. At the bottom, our judgments lead us to do one thing. Take actions or non-actions. So we either take action or we don't take action based on the judgments that we've made. And what this leads us to is results. So let me give you an example. Sales is very important in business. Not all of you like that or agree with that. I have yet to meet a single entrepreneur of all the organizations that I've ever worked with that started their business because they loved sales. People start businesses because they've got an idea, they've got a passion, they've got a hobby they think they can monetize, and what happens is one day they wake up and they go, hey, who's going to sell this? And if they're the only employee, which is the case in a lot of startup businesses, all of a sudden they realize that it's got to be them. And that becomes a very awkward and uncomfortable thing. Because I want you to go back to when you were a little girl or a little boy. Did you want to be in sales when you grew up? No. I've asked tens of thousands of people that question around the country, and I have yet to find somebody that goes, when I was a little kid, I couldn't wait to grow up and be in sales. sales makes the world go round. What happens in sales, and we use a very specific sales example, are things like this. We get a belief to go, they're way too big of a company, they'd never do business with us. We make the judgment to never call on them. We get no business from that company, which reinforces our belief that they're way too big to do business with us. You see how quickly this happens? Let's take a specific example of a cold call. Which, by the way, when you're starting a brand new business, is one of the absolute single most important things you should be doing, but most people never want to do that because they're awkward and uncomfortable. So here's the belief. Cold calls don't work. Judgment leads us to not make any cold calls. We get no sales or results from cold calls, which reinforces our belief. You see how fast this happens? Now let's talk about what goes on a little bit deeper than this. In our subconscious minds, when we are given new information, there are only 3 things that can happen with it. Let me say that again. In our subconscious minds, when we are given brand new information, there are only 3 things that can happen with it. You probably want to write these down. Thing number 1 is that we immediately embrace the information. We immediately embrace it. Embrace sounds like this. Oh, that is amazing. That's awesome. Love it. Can't wait to do it. Sign up for it. Buy it. Whatever it might be. The second thing that happens in our subconscious minds when we are given brand new information is that we blend it. We blend it. Blending sounds kind of like this. Yeah, I can kind of maybe sort of see that if I think about other things I already know and believe and put them together. It makes sense. The third thing that happens is that we immediately defend against it. We immediately defend against it. Now, this does not mean that we put up our fists and fight. This means that our subconscious minds go, I don't think so. I don't believe it. I don't see it. Can't understand it. Which of these do you think happens most frequently? Defend. Our subconscious minds defend against 60 to 80% of what we hear every day. So let me give you a super quick example, possibly painful. In a couple of months, we're going to have a presidential election. If you want to see this play out, watch what happens when somebody's name comes up that's a presidential candidate. Either we immediately love the other person, it's like, oh, they love the same person as me, or we can't stand the other person. You see how fast this happens? Now let's take this and put it into business. I know what's going on right now in all of your minds is that this is happening. Some of you are immediately going, oh, that's perfect. I completely agree with it. Love every minute of it. Some of you are going, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it kind of fits with something I heard before. And some of you are going, Mike said sales is important. There's no way that's going to fit into my business because I've got something that sells itself. And it happens that fast. A lot of the people that come in here and speak are entrepreneurs that have got a product or a service or an idea. And some of you that have sat in here have had this happen. Somebody stood up here and showed you something, or maybe slides if it was more of a service, and some of you went immediately, oh, I can see how everybody needs that. Or maybe kind of, sort of, or no way, that's going to flop totally.